The Vethani ambassador stood before the Galactic Council and formally requested that humanity be classified as a Class 7 extinction-level threat. Not because of our weapons, not because of our ships, because they had intercepted our internet. All of it. Every war documentary, every horror movie, every Reddit thread about what we would do if we had superpowers. The ambassador was shaking when she read the transcript of something called World War II and then quietly asked the council. They did this to their own species. My name is Cultural Analyst Dren of the Vethani First Contact Division. It was my job to assess humanity before formal diplomatic relations. Standard procedure. Download their public communications network, run it through translation matrices, build a cultural profile. We've done it for 600 species. It usually takes about a week. Humanity's internet took 3 months, not because of the volume, although the volume was staggering. Because every time we thought we understood them, we found something that contradicted everything we'd concluded. They have a communication mode called sarcasm, where they say the opposite of what they mean and expect you to know. They have a practice called horror, where they deliberately frighten themselves for entertainment. They write detailed fictional accounts of their own extinction and call it fun. The military assessment was where things got concerning. We expected a young species with primitive weapons. Instead, we found a civilization that had split the atom, used it to destroy 2 of its own cities, and then built 50,000 more of the same weapon just in case. They have a concept called mutually assured destruction, where they pointed enough weapons at each other to end all life on their planet and considered this a form of peace. It worked. For 80 years it worked. No species in the galactic archive has ever conceived of anything so insane or so effective. Our military analysts submitted their report with a note that said, "Recommend we do not make this species angry." Then we found what they call the animal kingdom. Humans did not evolve as the dominant predator on their planet. They evolved as a mid-level prey animal on a world where everything was trying to eat them. They were slower than the cats, weaker than the bears, smaller than the elephants, and softer than everything. So they cheated. They picked up rocks, then sharp rocks, then sticks with sharp rocks, then they set things on fire. In 4 million years, they went from running away from wolves to keeping wolves in their houses as pets. They didn't defeat their predators. They domesticated them. They turned the things that hunted them into things that loved them. I want you to sit with that for a moment. They looked at a wolf and thought, I can make that into a friend. The entertainment analysis broke 3 of our analysts. Humans have a genre called action movies where a single human defeats dozens of armed opponents through a combination of violence, improvisation, and refusing to stay down when injured. We assumed this was aspirational fiction. Then we found their history. A single human named Simo Heha eliminated over 500 enemy soldiers in a winter war using a rifle and snow. Another human named Jack Churchill went into a modern war carrying a sword and a set of bagpipes. A human named Julian Cope fell 2 miles out of an aircraft into a jungle and walked out 11 days later. These are not fiction. These are things that actually happened. Their aspirational fiction is somehow less impressive than their reality. But the thing that truly frightened us was not the weapons or the wars or the wolves. It was a concept we found repeated across every human culture on the planet. They call it spite. Humans will endure extraordinary suffering and sacrifice not for survival, not for reproduction, not for any logical evolutionary advantage, but specifically to prevent someone else from winning. They will set their own house on fire to deny it to an enemy. They will march into certain death simply because someone told them they couldn't. Their history is full of individuals who chose to die rather than submit, not because death was preferable, but because submission was intolerable. No other species in our database has this trait. Every other species calculates cost and benefit and acts accordingly. Humans calculate cost and benefit, decide the cost is worth it purely out of spite, and then act anyway. My report to the Council was 4,000 pages. The summary was 1 sentence: do not invade Earth. The Council asked why. I told them that humanity is a species that invented nuclear weapons and then used them on itself, domesticated its own predators, watches horror movies for fun, and will burn everything they own to the ground rather than let someone else have it. If we invade, we don't face a military. We face 400 years of action movies turned into military doctrine by a species that considers mutually assured destruction a reasonable Tuesday. The Council voted unanimously to classify Earth as a protected sanctuary world, not to protect humans, to protect everyone else. The ambassador asked me one final question. She said, "Are they always like this?" I said, "Yes." She asked, "Even to each other?" I said, "Especially to each other." She was quiet for a very long time. Then she said, "How are they not extinct?" And I told her the truth. I said, "Nobody knows, not even them."